I know I'm not alone in thinking that Generation 2 was the golden age of Pokemon, and not just because of Pokemon Gold. To me, these graphics are the classic Pokemon aesthetic. I absolutely love it. If we could get a game that looks like Pokemon Crystal, but with all of the modern mechanics, that would be fantastic. And of course, with a new region came 100 new Pokemon. So let's have a look at some of the best designs of Generation 2, where Umbreon is not one of them. Stylistically, the new Pokemon were quite similar to Generation 1. Actually, a bunch of Pokemon from Generation 2 were originally planned for Generation 1. But the improved graphics meant that they didn't have to sacrifice quite so much in terms of the detail in the designs. And the way that they used the baby Pokemon and the new evolutions to sort of refresh some of the weaker designs from before was absolutely genius. Actually, I would say that one new evolution in particular saved its line, and that is Crobat. In Gen 1, Zubat was everywhere. Zubat and Tentacool were the most annoying Pokemon of the Kanto games, just because they were so easy to find, and their confusion and poison moves just made everything worse. And Zubat was also a pain to raise, because it didn't have that sweet, sweet base power 80 on Leech Life. And if you did put in the work of raising one, you ended up with Golbat, which was not that strong and just really ugly, with the awkward wings and the gaping slackjaw and the weird stick figure feet. And then, thank Arceus, we got Crobat. A sleek body, a reasonable mouth, actual feet, and those gorgeous X-Wings. Now that is worth putting up with Zubat for. Most Pokemon in Generation 1 were based on a single thing, generally a mythical creature, but a few were an animal or an object, and there's still a lot of Pokemon like that today, but Generation 2 started another trend, bringing together two unrelated ideas. For example, Donphan is a cross between an elephant and a tire. I don't really know why they made that particular connection, but this combination of two very familiar elements into something new and surprising definitely worked out well. Girafarig is another example, but a much more abstract one, because it's a combination of an animal, a giraffe or possibly an okapi, with an abstract concept, the palindrome. It's basically a two-way giraffe, but the alternating colors show us that there is a transition, sort of a blend between the two sides, but also a contrast. There are also a few elements that tell us which side is dominant. The head on the tail is smaller, and the legs all face the same way. In the Pokemon Gold demo that was recently leaked, we actually saw a beta design for Girafarig that I think works even better, because in that version, both sides seem equally dominant. Instead of a head and a tail, it has two heads, and the legs face opposite ways. And since Girafarig is supposed to be a palindrome, even its name is a palindrome both in English and in Japanese, it makes sense that both sides should be pretty much equal. But I also get why they changed it. You know, I think if the follow-up to Pokemon Gold and Silver had featured Entei or Raikou instead of Suicune, it wouldn't have been quite as popular as Crystal. Not that Entei or Raikou are poorly designed, not at all, but it's just that Suicune has that perfect balance of elements to appeal to the most people. It's got this aura of mystery and purity about it that's kind of irresistible. And it looks incredibly majestic with that giant crystal on its head, the mane that looks like a flowing river, and those ribbons that billow in a gentle breeze. Suicune doesn't look quite as powerful as Raikou and Entei, and it really isn't. Its offensive stats are much lower, but that's all on purpose. Suicune is more of a gentle beast. Raikou and Entei are much more about power and aggression, and I just don't think that appeals to quite as many people. I talked in the last episode about how I think Dragonite is among the worst designs of Generation 1, but the pseudo-legendary of Generation 2 is definitely among the best. Instead of a smooth, squishy dragon, we have a rough, solid mountain of a kaiju. And it transitions so much better from one stage to the next. I don't really get why there's a pupil form in the line, but there's a bunch of design elements that carry through really well. Obviously, Tyranitar looks like a grown-up Larvitar, but you may not have noticed how much it also retains from Pupitar. Pupitar's main body becomes Tyranitar's stomach. Its mask becomes the chest plate with the wedge-shaped holes, where the eyes used to be, and the 3 spikes at the top of its head become Tyranitar's eyebrow and forehead spikes. Just overall, a fantastic design. Thanks for joining me. Let me know in the comments below which you think were the best designs of Generation 2. This was Chapter 3 of my Pokemon creature design review. In the last 2 episodes, we talked about Generation 1, and in the next one, as much as I hate to do it, we will talk about the worst designs of Generation 2. If you're enjoying the series and want to see more of it, please hit the like button and subscribe with notifications on. I'm Umbreon Libris. I'll see you in the next chapter. Raikou and Entei are much more about power and aggression, and I just don't think that